everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on another edition of the Arms Bumanlag Project, broadcasting live on this first day of fall from beautiful Amherstburg, Ontario at the Little Heart Studios. We're very happy to have you along for the ride. It feels like it's been a while, hasn't it? We're back down to one episode a week, much to the enjoyment of my wife, I guess, so to speak. We were doing 2 episodes a few weeks ago, and although as much as I like it, we've had a couple of irons in the fire with other projects I'm involved with. So down to 1 episode a week, which is okay, because that just means we have some epic guests on the horizon too. Before I bring my friends on the show, and I mean that, they're 2 of the most dedicated, hardworking people I've had the pleasure to work with and interview over the years, and they've got lots to share and a very timely topic to talk about here on the program as well. We wanted to recap some of the things that we had on the go over the last little bit. Now, you might remember last week we had a couple of great folks on the show, Don and Roy McLean, my good friends from the Game MD on Tecumseh Road, and we certainly nerded it up for about an hour, talked about some of their pandemic challenges as small business in Windsor. And then, my friend Stephanie Lianga, just an amazing lady from Women's Enterprise Skills Training here in Windsor. I've known Stephanie for many, many years. She's going to be so gracious to join us next Tuesday on the show. So, we've dived into so many different topics since we launched the program back in May. We've done pop culture. We've done lots of charitable organizations in Windsor-Essex, folks that you might remember from the TV and radio days, to influencers, to politicians, to VIPs. But I always like to talk to people who are certainly on the front lines of major things that are happening in the city and to do with our family, our friends, our neighbors, and people that we love. And some of those folks work in the healthcare industry. And it's so crucial to talk about some of the challenges that they've gone through as organizations, but certainly as people who provide essential services in regards to mental health. So I'm very excited and very happy to reconnect with some folks that I, again, have worked with for a number of years. Joining me on the program, we've got Lucy and Pat from the Bulimia Anorexia Nervosa Association, who are joining us live this evening. Lucy, Pat, oh my gosh, what a pleasure to see you both. And how the heck are you both? Lucy, we'll start with you.
Sure. So I'm doing quite well, managing the pandemic quite well and being hopeful, staying hopeful. I always say I'm happy my kids are back in school. I think that's one of my biggest celebrations most recently, just based on having a bit of normal and more structure. But overall, doing well.
That's great to hear. And your kids, I know I follow you on Instagram. They're just absolutely adorable. And it seems like they're adjusting to the new normal. And I hate using that term, but whatever this is here as we head into 2021. Pat, how the heck are you, sir?
Doing great, keeping busy, always getting the messages out and, keep engaging with wonderful people like you.
Well, I appreciate the time. And, I go back to way back when, where I've said this many times on the show with people I brought in back in my radio and television days, when I would always need a Jose Canseco guest. And I'm not a sports guy, but certainly somebody who I know who could knock it out of the park. I would call at a moment's notice. It would always be Lucy or Pat from Banna to come on the show and to talk about a number of initiatives that have been happening at Banna as well. So let's talk about the elephant in the room right off the cuff. Lucy, let's talk about the impact of COVID, certainly with the organization as executive director. What have you seen over the last almost 2 years? Hard to say that, but it's true.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, we went into the pandemic. Obviously, nobody expected what was about to happen. Over these prolonged 18 months, I think we've definitely seen an influx of clients. Just recently today, I was looking at some statistics measuring, pre-COVID versus now, and looking at the summer months, so June, July, and August, and we've seen 117% increase in referrals for intakes through our centralized intake line. So that's unbelievable. It's unheard of. I've actually been at Banna for 18 years now, in this position for almost 10 years, and I have never seen these type of numbers. So it's been quite a whirlwind, to be honest with you, but it's not something that I think is unique just to our community. I think it is a global issue. I think Ontario, we are partnered with a network of people that are experiencing sort of the same increases as well.
There's so much to unpack with that. I mean, that's a huge stat to look at. I know we were talking just before we went live. I mean, you've been there for 18 years. Do you attribute that, Lucy, to, we've talked about the benefits of coming forward and, to reference our friends over at CMHA, showing your soul and getting people to be a little bit more vocal and I guess shedding that stigma around getting mental health, access to mental health services. But was it the perfect storm with COVID, in the sense that we've been pushing people for so long to kind of talk about things and to get the help they need? And then you have this, and I'm going to be honest, like once in a lifetime, hopefully, event that happens globally to so many folks across so many different backgrounds, so many different ages. And now it's almost like that crack in the dam, right? It's like this flood of people that are coming in. Would you attribute it to something to that, or is it something totally left field?
Yeah, absolutely. I think eating disorders, I would say they thrive in isolation. So I do think this is the perfect storm for many reasons. One of them, I think, is being obviously isolation and social isolation has been something with the lockdowns, shutdowns. People are not socially engaged as they naturally have been. Heightened anxiety, I think that's one thing as well, where we're all anxious, right, to see what's next. And so naturally, people that have that perfect storm for eating disorders, it's really a thriving environment for them. And I think food security, there's a lot of social media messages, there's that comparison trap. I think there's so many things to attribute to this increase. I do agree that I think based on the fact that we've been talking so much more about mental health, I think that's one of the positive things that has come out of COVID is that people feel more comfortable speaking about their mental health and reaching out for help and actually having their loved ones supporting them and reaching out for help. So I think that's been really positive. And we hope that happens because sometimes we know people are living in secrecy and they're not reaching out for the help that they need. So perfect storm for sure. But I also think that, the uptake with mental health and so many great campaigns going on around, our city, our province in terms of making people more comfortable with that topic.
You talk about, these particular topics that you folks deal with and reach out certainly from your clientele and the folks who seek out your services and your support. You see a lot of this thrives in isolation. And I mean, my God, if you look at the lockdowns that we've been through and the isolation that has been, I'm going to be honest, like on the show, a lot of people have said, oh, we're all in the same boat. We're all in the same boat. And it's like, well, some of us are in yachts and some of us are in canoes and some of us are holding on to a dear old piece of the Titanic, like Rose and Jack in the movie. No, honestly, like it's, I think we're all in the same storm, but we're very much different. So, I mean, what have you seen from your lens, running the ship, so to speak, Lucy, to see, some of the outreach? You said it's been busy, and I'm sure that, there's only so many hours in the day, right? That you can you're trying to fit as many people as you can in.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I think Banna did really well, and I attribute that to the fantastic staff here, we jumped onto virtual almost immediately. And essentially when this all really shut down, we were shut down for about 4 days and we jumped onto virtual calling people, and that was a real benefit because I think that connectedness made a difference. And so we started, really seeing people in person. We looked at high risk clientele. We knew we had to be in person, even though at times they were encouraging us to be on virtual. We made that decision to do sort of that hybrid model of seeing people in person and virtual. One of the benefits of virtual, obviously, is that it takes away some of the barriers around transportation, getting here, and some of that anxiety around COVID and when PPE was sort of just coming about. So that was really important. I think that's one area that we thrived in. But there's limitations as well to virtual, right? Because this is a real people have medical consequences and complications, and at times we really need to see people in person. And so not everybody's suitable for virtual, as well as not everybody has access to virtual or privacy. That's another issue, right? Where people are in homes with other people and they're sort of living in this secret life. And so that was a little bit challenging in navigating all of those pieces, but we did that, I think, quite well. And I think that's one of the things that we've seen. We've seen food security, right? So we know that there was like a lot of empty shelves at times during these, this lockdowns, and people were really buying a lot of food, stocking up. And we talk about that perfect storm because when you're looking at that, the food availability, so binging on food, right, when you have it available, or restricting and trying to gain some of that control. Because what we do know about COVID is that control was really lost for many of us, right? So structure, control, routines, all of those pieces had a real impact on that. So looking at the food security, looking at the abundance of food, I think what stands out for me, what I've heard over the last 18 months is so many people using food delivery service. And so that they didn't have to leave their home, and they were racking up this immense amount of credit card debt using food security. Food, all these food delivery services, and looking at people having $6,000, owing on credit cards based on ordering food. So that was an interesting finding. We never really heard that before, but what they liked about it was that there was no judgment and no contact. And so the food would be dropped off and nobody knew if it was for a family of 4 or for one person, right? And so that judgment seemed to be not there. So that was probably one of the highlights of things that I've been hearing over the past months.
Let's go to some of the comments that we have rolling in this hour. And certainly we're back again with episode, I believe this is 28, believe it or not, of the Arms Bumanlag Project. Very happy to have Lucy and Pat from Banna on the show with us today. Marissa says on Facebook, hey, thank you so much for hosting Banna and all the work they do in the community. Go Lucy and go Pat. So Marissa, thank you for the comment. Andrea says on Facebook too, thank you for sharing. Awesome job, Team Banna. Way to go, Lucy and Patrick. So some of the supporters joining us in the live stream. Nice to see that your work is being recognized and continues to be recognized. I know, way back when we used to talk on, radio and television, I used to have you guys on the shows all the time. And, we talked a little bit about getting that message out there. And I think that kind of lends itself to, making Banna and many services very accessible to folks in this, like you said, Lucy, digital age, but also kind of walking the tightrope and finding that balance on what's going to happen. I look at everything that's happening in the world today in terms of, God help us if we'd have another lockdown or something on the horizon too. I mean, what that looks like for organizations getting geared up, geared down. But again, those services continue to happen and those clients need to be seen and you need to make those connections with people too. So some learning, I guess, from Banna's perspective as well. But, one thing I wanted to talk to you guys about too was, sort of like the need for, you guys to reach out to the community to say, hey, we're here. These are the services we offer. But that need for financial support too, for that monitoring for your clients and sort of that reduction of wait times. That's always on the horizon, is it not, Lucy?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we've noticed is we have about 75 clients on our wait list currently. We've never seen that number before. And this is the stuff that keeps our clinicians up at night, I say, because, it really is a burden for all of us to take that and we want to do more. And as you said, Arms, there's only so many hours in a day. And some of the things that we've done is, we've trained all of our staff in CBTT so that it goes from 20 sessions to 10 sessions so that we can get more people through the door. So we've been very proactive over these last 18 months in order to reduce that wait time. I think that sits on all of us. And then also really advocating for more funding. That's one of the things that we continuously do is that we do need more support and more funding in order to run these programs. So definitely, as you know, fundraising hasn't been an easy task over the past months because, a lot of our signature events and things that we naturally would do have been put to a halt. And then just demonstrating the need for more funding with the government, which we stay hopeful that we will receive more funding in due time. But, it takes that pressure off of everybody to continuously work with this client and this population and to serve them the best that we can.
And that's one of the things too, Lucy, again, to pivot over to Pat here for a second. I mean, my God, how many children's fests have we done over the years? You and I mean, probably a decade.
This should have been the 26th, but yeah, we've been doing it together. Probably back 10, 12 years. I know Banna came on with a full partnership with Children's Fest in 2019. But you and I were doing it even before then, just helping out the Rotary Club.
Yeah.
So yeah, and unfortunately, it's more than just the event. It's great to bring thousands of families together, but it's a communication piece. It's a chance for them to learn more. And one of the things we always focused on Children's Fest wasn't just Banna and Rotary, was giving the opportunity for dozens of local charities and nonprofits to come out, display, get in front of families, be face-to-face, answer questions, CMHA, Teen Health, a Hiatus House, all of them. We had 73 vendors at the last Children's Fest, and 31 of them were local nonprofits. There's very few opportunities for them to get in front of 6,000 families in any given weekend and show what this community can do and get your message out. So it's not just a loss to us. Losing events like that hurt dozens of local agencies, and we're really hoping to be able to bring that back next year at full strength.
Well, I got to tell you both. I mean, for all the times we used to do live reports and talk about Children's Fest, you don't really appreciate events like that until you have a kid. You're like, you want to bring him somewhere, right? Because it's like Liam is like, he's at that age now where he's like 3.5, and I've said it here on the show many times. Like my wife and I really struggled with, I don't want to say bite the bullet, but biting the bullet. Like, do we put him into daycare for a couple of days a week because he's never been around kids? Because we got him home from sick kids. He was isolated. And then we just got him in the early years programs, and then COVID hits. And then we're super precautious of him because of his high risk immunocompromised system. And now it's like, okay, well, he's got to be around kids. He starts senior kindergarten, God willing, next September. So it's like, I look at like events like Children's Fest. I'm like, man, like he would have a blast at that.
Yes.
Like just seeing the performers and getting to know the community and getting to know about the people and the organizations and the folks like you who really make a difference for a number of different organizations here locally. It's incredible. But I wanted to talk about that pivot from that fundraising that you guys are doing too, and some really cool outreach that you continue to do over the next little bit too. And we'll get to that in the next couple of minutes. But I just want to go back to Lucy here for a second and talking about that clinical service that continues throughout COVID. If you can get more into that for me, Lucy, because I think that's fascinating that you guys continue to kind of hit that hard through the pandemic to make sure that that's covered for folks who need it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do host the centralized intake for eating disorders. It's really actually one of its kind. Nobody in Ontario actually has a centralized intake in an outpatient program. So, it's a fantastic opportunity for people to reach out, to actually talk to a person that is, and, our intake is, MSW. They are very well versed in eating disorders. They speak to you, they triage the person, they get them into services, and so this is a partnership with WeCHC, so through Teen Health, and so BANA hosts this intake for all ages. So a person or a family member or a self-referral physician, anybody can make this referral to BANA. There's a form actually on our website at bana.ca. It's quite easy to get into, or they can call our 1-855 number. It's 1-855-969-5530. And they actually speak to somebody, they meet with them. We have been meeting with people virtually and getting them into treatment. So once that happens, they go through a diagnostic assessment process. So if they're coming as an adult, they would go through BANA's treatment process, which is, they would receive a diagnostic assessment, which is quite comprehensive, and then they get put on the wait list, unfortunately. Hopefully we're working on that, but they do receive quite a prescriptive treatment. So we look at CBTT or CBTE. It's 20 sessions versus 10, essentially just depending on the person's diagnosis, and they go through this whole process. Our outcomes are phenomenal. And so some people are using a hybrid. They're coming in the office for some of their appointments. We're doing virtual. We're doing both. We're trying to really meet the clients where they're at as well. And our clinicians have just done a phenomenal job at just picking up and going. And we, I was talking about earlier, literally 4 days into the pandemic, we were on virtual and moving into this. And I think we've just gotten better and better at it. So it's just been, I say that I feel like COVID's really brought us, 20 years ahead in some form, because
For sure.
it would have taken us so long to get into this virtual modality, right? Or people working from home and actually working from home in such a meaningful way, right? And that you can actually do it. And so we've been quite flexible with our staff. We have staff that's in the office. We've had people in the office really essentially since the beginning of COVID. And so it's been really fantastic. And they're always just trying to figure out ways that they can support our clients better.
Well, I just want to say kudos to you as a leader to allow your staff to have that flexibility too. I think that's so crucial. And I've got a fantastic guest coming, shameless plug for the show, in a couple of weeks. I'm going to be talking to somebody from the Odette School of Business, somebody that I've actually engaged with quite frequently on LinkedIn. And he's going to come on and talk a little bit about sort of the forward thinking for organizations and nonprofit and certainly from a for-profit model about changing that mindset about how work gets done. And what that means for folks as well. And I think that's so crucial for a lot of folks in terms, and I've said it like a broken record on the show, for some people it works, some people it doesn't. But I think if those who work at it, I think it's allowed a lot of folks to have that quality of life back. If you can trust your employees to kind of, make hay when they need to make hay and get those results. I think that's a testament to, sort of the team that you've got, Lucy, that they're able to do that and do it well, like you said, over the last 18, 19 months.
I will tell you, they've done it more than well. I can't even explain to you how phenomenal our outcomes have been over the past 18 months. And it just really shows you that this hybrid model is here to stay. And I think flexibility, trust, transparency, all of those pieces work hand in hand. And communication, I think that's what it really is about. When pandemic first hit, we were meeting weekly every Monday, sort of sharing our feelings and talking about our goals for the week. And then we moved to biweekly. We're now at monthly meetings, but we communicate regularly. And I think communication is key in order to keep, people feeling connected. And that's been one of the challenges, right, for everybody, including ourselves, that we're so used to having the lunchroom open and everybody sort of having those opportunities. We also used to do a lot of community days where we used to get together and do a lot of team building. Obviously, given COVID and all the restrictions, we haven't been able to do that. So finding unique ways to still stay connected and communicate with one another, I think has been really crucial in this process.
I think you got a great guy to help out with that too, with Patrick. I mean, you talk about some of those pivots you've done, Patrick. From a communication standpoint, I know you and I, way back when, we used to, kind of bring our heads together for different things to do with Ontario health teams and all those kind of things too. But to get that information on the forefront, I mean, let's talk about some of those pivots that you've had to make as a communications guy and, reaching audiences in different avenues, right? People aren't necessarily, God bless them, they are still tuning into the newscasts, but they want the information right at their fingertips, and hence the newsletter or magazines, should I say?
Yeah. The magazine was came about rather organically, and again, it's that brainstorming. And the meeting that Lucy keeps referring to is we would meet regularly and talk about not only what was working but what wasn't working. And one of the things that kept coming up with, we were pumping so much information out, just like everybody was at the beginning of the pandemic, on our social media, on our website, on our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, that we had good stuff, we had humor stuff, we had supportive stuff. Sometimes the knowledge stuff got lost. And we had some staff that wrote some really good articles. We shared a lot of really good resources that in our mind were things that when people were coming in every day, we would hand you. It'd be a physical booklet we give you. It would be an article we would give you. It would be a story, something to help our clients and the community move along. Unfortunately, when you do that on Facebook or Instagram, 3 posts later, it's gone. Nobody's scrolling back to read an article. And Lucy just happened to make a comment one day, gee, it'd be nice if we could keep them around longer. And those wheels started turning. And I walked away and quickly Google searched how to do an online magazine. It was more just entertaining a thought with myself. And then the next day I wrote 12 pages of our first magazine.
Awesome.
And 3 weeks later, with some contributions from our staff, we published a year ago, November, our first issue. And it was a 20-page full color magazine
Awesome.
that went out on a mailing list, and people responded. And we started covering topics, not only eating disorders, but general mental health. We had tips from our nutritionist. We talked about perfection, and especially with the pandemic, trying to live up to the standards that we had before the pandemic and how you had to give yourself a break. And people really resonated to it and started talking to us about the magazine. And we thought, maybe we have something here. So come the new year, we decided let's try another episode. And the first week of February is Eating Disorder Awareness Week. So we came up with another issue for that, and got NDP, MPP Andrew out of Toronto is a huge body positive advocate, and just on a fluke.
That's
and
awesome.
She's been helping us with some legislature on actually getting Eating Disorder Awareness Week proclaimed in Parliament. So we gave her a call and said, hey, would you be willing to be our first ever interview? And she wanted giving us an hour and a half and 3 full pages of content.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and from there on, we've now done 4 issues. We've had writers from across Canada, from California, leading experts from California. We just had, Lucy mentioned CBTE and CBTT, which is cognitive behavior enhanced for eating disorders, and the T is the 10-week version. The gentleman that developed the T, which is the 10-week version, is out of the UK, and he's a professor from Sheffield University in England. He wrote an article in the most recent issue. And the gentleman that's now running Credo, which is the worldwide organization that developed the CBTE, which is now the international standard, and he's based out of Italy, is going to be writing an article in the next issue. And we're being approached from writers from around the world. We just got approached from a medical doctor from India that wants to write an upcoming issue. We have experts from Harvard that are going to be in the Harvard-affiliated Boston University doing research right now that are going to be writing in this little publication that we do here in Windsor. And thanks to some of our supporters, it's being read in 47 countries now around the world. And we produce it all here in-house, all the design, all the layout. We curate all the stories. We go after all the articles, and we also print it. And we're printing 250 to 300 copies that are giving out free of charge to local nonprofits around town to go in their lobbies to help people. Plus, it's online on our website at you got up there, bana.ca/magazine. You can subscribe for free. We'll email it to you. We're doing them quarterly. There's 4 issues online right now. But what it's done is not only allow people to hear from experts like us and around the industry, we've gone after people who have real life experiences. Every issue has a story from a client. This coming issue is actually going to have 2 clients in it. We've talked to people who are huggers and how they've dealt with hugging during the pandemic. We've had local social workers write about what it's like for newcomers to come and experience our mental health system and some of the stigma they face, not only trying to understand our system, but accept it. And how local service providers can work with newcomers to rate them a little bit more. So it's gone so much further beyond eating disorders than we ever could expect.
And I gotta just interrupt you here, Patrick, because I just want to dive into a little bit more of that connectivity piece with you and Lucy. But I want to say hats off to you guys again. I this is something I know a friend of ours, and I think we all know her as Michelle Suchu from Workforce, and you know, some of the work that she does again with WeLip. But I love that forward thinking here in 2021 to say that, you know, the makeup of Windsor and Essex County is changing. And the amount of folks that we are seeing coming to our region, not even just from the GTA area, you know, I talk about that on my real estate shows that I do, but certainly from around the world that are coming to this area. And you're starting to see more of that diversification, I think, more than ever in Windsor. And when you talk about that newcomer piece too, I will say to you guys, like, kudos to your team and the 2 of you for at least being part of that leading charge to say that these aren't folks that we are going to forget in the system, that they're not going to be like, we're going to try, and you may not always get it right because it is a learning curve. And I think that's one of the things that you do when you're trying to reach out to those populations is you try to listen to them and try to understand where they're coming from and kind of fill the gaps where you can fill them. And I think that's so crucial. And good on you for using real stories. You know, I've often said, you know, testimonials are key. And if you have testimonials in any kind of aspect, it's like you can have the best product in the world, but if, you know, you can get your clients, your base, whoever, to talk about how great you are doing it and what kind of problem you solved for them, then they automatically become your brand ambassador. So I look forward. I mean, I get the newsletter in my email, my Gmail account, and first time I got it, I'm like, oh, Pat's got something cool. Let me click on it. I was like, holy cow! I'm clicking through. I'm like, what? Like, la, very nice production quality here. But no, it's got some great stuff. And I would think too, Patrick, for you, it's a chance for a little bit of that news bug in you to sort of operate your own kind of newsroom out of Bana.
It is, because, you know, that's the funny thing about mental health is that even now, the last year and a half has been wonderful. That's been the one thing that's come out of COVID, is that people are more willing to talk about it. But even those that aren't necessarily talking about it are always looking for it. You're sensitive to it. You want to pick up. You want to know that you're not alone in this, and to be able to get something pop up in your email a couple times a year that may relate to you or somebody you know, or give you that little bit more sense of belonging. And quite often it's passive. We're not selling anything in this magazine. We you know, we've heard about our waiting list. The key to eating disorders is prevention, education, and early intervention. And that's true with any mental health situation. So if we can inform somebody, if we can make them feel a little less alone, make them feel a little more accepted. One, for those who are affected, encourage them to get help. And for those who aren't quite there yet, either not quite in a severe issue or just maybe at the beginning, if we can get to them early enough, we can prevent them from getting there. Then we've already done our job. And it's kind of this funny thing is that part of our job is to make sure we don't have one. Sure. But that's realistic, because mental health, that's never going to happen. But if we can get to somebody before they need us, all the better. and we're always happy to partner. And you've seen the first 4 issues. We every issue we grab a couple more community partners to grab and bring them in here, because their issues are just as important as ours. That's why it doesn't say an eating disorder magazine; it says a mental health and wellness magazine, and that was the whole point. Is there's so many comorbidities and other symptoms and issues that affect our clients, that we know eating disorder isn't the only issue that they see. So we want to address the entire spectrum of mental health disorders so we can better help them and others. And this just is one of the vehicles that allows us to do it. And like I said, it's not just us that have been excited about it. We're getting requests from around the world from people that want to now write for us. So yeah, that's really that's where we're getting a huge enjoyment out of this, is the feedback. It's really a labor of love, and we're getting the love back.
Let's just go to some of the comments from Facebook here too. Debbie says, you know what? Testimonials are an outlet for individuals. Let it out, not holding everything inside. And then that must be somewhat therapeutic, right? I mean, if you were to rewind the clock 15 years ago, before the advent of this TikTok and Instagram age, and, just when, MySpace was around too, even before then, it's like, I think people are a little bit more apt generally to maybe share their stories. There's a little bit less of that, especially in a written form. I think less than a camera shy. Are you seeing that a bit, Patrick, with some of the folks that you're talking to?
We do, and one of our social workers works carefully with all of our contributing writers who are clients and are talking about their mental health stories, just to be careful and make sure they're comfortable in what they're doing. And every single one of them that has submitted an article so far has come back to us afterward and said how empowering it was. And it's kind of funny. I get calls like a week or 2 later saying, "Can I get some more copies? My grandmother wants one, or my cousin wants me to send them one." And yeah, how many do you need? So you can see that confidence building from the first day to day 2 to day 5 to day 10, because they're still calling, they're still sharing it. It's always great to see that the next stage, and others are recognizing it. Like I said, now the first couple we did ask clients if they want to participate. Just much like the experts, clients are now calling us saying, "Hey, if there's ever an opportunity, I'd love to tell my story." Awesome. We've been around 38 years now with BANA. We've never had clients call and say, "Hey, someplace I can tell your story." That's very exciting for us, because not only did it reaffirm that we're doing some good here, that we've gotten people to a place where they now want to talk about, they want to be our ambassadors, and knowing the scope of this, and quite honestly, they don't care if their name's on it or not. They're excited by seeing other people's stories and encouraged to tell their own, and that's a great cathartic resource. And it's surprising, as we're having clients return to the office, how many comment on how great it was to see somebody else's story in these magazines. And we get a lot of feedback from current clients, and people have called now saying that, I read this article and it sounds a lot like me. So they're inspiring the next level of people that need help, and it's not us anymore. It's the people that have been through it, and that's wonderful. That you can't ask for anything more.
From the magazine to the podcast, this is something that I know is also a labor of love for you as well, and something that where I think it's an opportunity to do something like this, right? And chit chat a bit and talk about some of the issues and have that personal connectivity through a different form, that audio form. How's that been going for you?
It's actually been really great. And got it up on your screen, but for those listening on Spotify, it's bana.ca/podcast. We have, I think there's 16 or 17 podcasts up there. We did 16 last year, and it started as part of a research project with the University of Windsor. We were doing some research on mothers and daughters and how they relate on social media. And one of the ways we were going to get some of those stories out was doing a podcast. And initially it was just going to be, I think, 4, and then it became 6, and we're up to 17 now. But we've had Olympic athletes, we've had doctors, we've had industry experts, we've had our staff, we've had yoga experts, we've had gym teachers.
Wow.
We've had 2 former CFL players on here, and they're all talking about their mental health struggles, issues they've been through, and really it's wonderful to hear, because again, it's those first person accounts. It's not just your doctor or your nurse or your social worker. It's these world-class athletes. It's teachers who are in the classroom that see it, and they're telling the real life stories about what they've seen, what they encounter, what they've struggled, and how they've gotten through it. And we really encourage people to check it out. We have one, actually. We recorded another one today with Trans Ontario group, so that's going to be coming out probably next week.
Awesome.
Yeah, so about every 6 weeks, we have another one come out. Our health promotion team, it's run by Stephanie, our health educator. She does all the interviewing, and they do an absolutely wonderful job. Again, we've been doing it much like this during the pandemic, remotely, and then we get together. But it's produced in house, and it's been very positive. And it's a really great outlet for people, again, in a safe place to learn a little bit more about this. And they're all listed by the topic, so you can see them right there on our page. I think there's 10 or 12 different channels you can see us up on now.
That's awesome. And I've listened to a few actually, through the last couple of months, and it's just great. It's great to hear those personal connections. It's great to hear that sort of in-depth, relatable content that people can access at their fingertips too. So highly encourage anybody listening or watching the show after the fact to check it out, panda.ca/podcast. One thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about too, and I think this is something that, from a society lens, there's so much negativity out there online and certainly in person. And I don't pretend to preach upon Mount High about being a kind person. God knows I've had my days too. But I think we all have through this last 18, 19 months, whatever you want to call it. But this is something I think this is near and dear to both your hearts. And Lucy, could you tell us a little bit more about the Be Kind campaign? And, it's such a simple message that I think people need to, or at least should try to resonate with.
Yeah, so, Pat mentioned a lot of things. One of the things I wanted to start off with saying is that we do a lot of prevention work and health promotion work. We have naturally throughout the years. We did 350 presentations last year virtually. Wow. And that's generally what we do in person. And so kudos to our health promotion team, just for kicking it right out of the out of the park. I mean, they've just done a phenomenal job. Again, when I talk about the clinical team getting on virtual, so did our health promotion team. They were in the classrooms virtually. They got on board and have done a phenomenal job. So this actually came out of sort of our health promotion, because based on, we do a big eating disorder awareness week every February, as Patrick mentioned. And it's a campaign that we try to really engage people in, and it's usually in person, right? And so we go to the university, the mall, we're all over the city. And so because of the limitations of COVID, we thought, how can we engage people? And we had been doing a lot of blogs, and the magazine was out, and and social media is always an outlet for us to sort of change that negative into the positive, because there's so much negativity out there, as we know. And so the Be Kind to Yourself, our motto at BANA is be yourself. I always say that's really interesting, because it's really hard to be yourself at times, because society's telling us to be this, be that, be everything else, but ourselves, right? So one of the things that we noticed during the pandemic was that so many people were caring for others. So whether it was, the essential workers, such as our staff, or any staff that really was, anybody that was an essential worker, was really, bogged down with caring for other people. We know that virtual school was happening, and virtual learning was happening, which people were working virtually and then also having their child beside them learning virtually. So there was a lot of stuff going on, right? As much as, it was just a number of things. And so a lot of people were not really being kind to themselves, right? They were trying to share the kindness and sort of compassion with other people. And so we thought, how amazing would it be to sort of put that out there? And Marissa from BANA actually came out with a whole design for this. We have so many talented people here. I just wanted to throw that out there, because you have Patrick throwing a magazine together in a night day, and then you have this whole concept coming together. And so we have photographers, we have artists, we have all these people that are coming together and sharing those talents with us. And so we developed this whole logo. We created t-shirts. We sold tons of t-shirts. People were really excited. We got some people in the community to wear our t-shirts and sort of pledge and be kind to yourself is really important. We've done lots of different we've done billboards and a sort of a whole campaign around this. And just as a reminder that in midst of a very, you said it well, like a very negative time and a lot of negative things brewing, to be kind to yourself, be kind to other people, right? And I say less judgment, more kindness, I think is really important, because we're all in this but we're all experiencing it. So this was a really, I think it really hit home for a lot of people, and we received a lot of really positive feedback, and people wore their t-shirts proudly. So that was a really great moment for us. And, as Patrick was kind of saying around, we there's the clinical side of things, but there's also that messaging, right, around body image. And, I've been asked on the radio, I've been asked many times, like, how's your body image, and I always say it's like a work in progress, because I really look at it as a continuum, because everybody's body image, everybody has body image issues at some point in time. Whatever it is, we never really measure up, because really that comparison trap is telling us that we should be younger, we should be more of this, more of that, less of this, whatever it is, right? And I think now that we've had so much time to be on social media, based on the fact that we've had lockdowns, shutdowns, I think those messages are becoming more and more, they're inundating, but they're more clear that we don't really measure up. And I think people are feeling the stress of that. We hear like COVID-15, meaning like the COVID 15 pounds, like the freshman 10. We hear a lot of those type of notions. How are people staying healthy and well during a time where, it's anxiety provoking, and there isn't a lot to do at times, right? So how do we create that? So a lot of these messages, and I know I said a lot of stuff, but essentially it's really important to be kind to yourself. It's really important to have compassion for yourself, not only other people.
Yeah, I just think it's a brilliant message. It's a simple message, and it's brilliant. And it's just, for whatever reason, and I don't want to paint a negative picture. I mean, one of my strategic plan for this show, so to speak, was to say, okay, can I do what I love to do? Can I fill a need? And to me, that need was to kind of highlight positive. Still talk about heavier topics when we can, but to highlight it in a positive lens. And when you go back, Lucy, to the social media thing, and I love social media, but I will say, I said this to Adriana Trotoli from Windsor-Essex, like, I'm not a TikTok guy. I'll go on TikTok, but you're not going to see me do TikToks. I will say this, though. It's like, if you flip it, you see some of the unrealistic imaging that's on there, and you certainly see it on Instagram. God knows that for sure.
Absolutely.
And you take a look at some of the phoniness that's around it. And I think when we can normalize or start to have those conversations, say it's okay to feel comfortable in your skin. You should feel like this is the space that you're living in, and to have that sort of sense of self, but then to also perpetuate that kindness that comes from that self-respect to other folks. I think I think that is something that hopefully the community continues to push forward here in 2021 into 2022, because it's like, it takes nothing to be kind, but for whatever reason, like you said, a lot of folks seem to draw those lines in the sand, or be very accusatory when, it's that old adage. I mean, I remember me growing up in school, it was like, never presume to judge somebody unless you walked a mile in their shoes, right? And you don't really know what folks are going through until you've really been through what they've been through. So, I mean, are you able to, you said that you're getting into the classrooms virtually, at least. I mean, has this been adopted well by, I'd imagine, a lot of the teenagers and a lot of the high schoolers here in the area for the Be Kind campaign to kind of hit that demographic that's so influenced by social media?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest topics we do talk about, and we bring that to the classroom, is social media. That's become a big highlight, and we talk about the highlight reel. So what you're seeing is not really real, and giving people these examples and perspective that, the be kind to yourself. Absolutely. We've screamed it from the rooftop, and I think a lot of people have adopted that. But we do definitely concentrate on the social media piece. And I'm a huge advocate of that, because I think there's such a comparison, not only with appearance, which we know is altered because everybody has a smartphone, and they have tons of apps on their smartphone, right? And, I recall starting at BANA, 18 years ago, and talking about the glossy magazines and the editing tools that we didn't have. And now we talk about all the apps that we do have at our fingertips, right? So everybody's, sort of putting this impression out, and it's their highlight reel. It's the best of the best. It's the positive, and they alter their appearance. I mean, we talk to young people, and they say they spend about 45 minutes, before posting on Instagram. And
Wow.
So they alter their photo, they send it to their friend for sort of approval, they post it, and then they're sort of waiting to see how many likes and how many comments. If it doesn't get enough likes or comments, they actually take it off. So it really shows you how the determination of that self-esteem. So that's one of the topics as well that we hit on, right? Where it goes really hand in hand, and having that confidence in yourself. It's hard to post something raw. whether it's an emotional statement, whether it's a picture of yourself that's not been touched up. And then it's the expectation that after that, you have to do that every single time. So people have this expectation that you look like that and that's who you are. And it goes into lifestyle, everything, right? So, I mean, it's comparison of everything, where you live, how many, brands, appearance, activities. And for young people, it's around, elite sports, cars, everything that we can imagine, but they're falsifying. And kind of what you're saying about phony, right? Is that your real life every day? Because, as we know, life has its challenges, which for all of us, right? And it comes in one way or another, and it's also on that continuum as well. And so we talk to kids around that, but I know young people, they're very much inward and sort of have that visors, like
horse blinders, right?
Yeah, they have the word.
Yeah.
I mean, that's essentially, so everything matters, right? So social media is one of the places where they acquire that self-esteem. They're feeling good about themselves, but opposite, they're feeling really lousy about themselves, right? Because they're not really measuring up. And so, I used to, another comment, I guess, I used to say, we compare ourselves to, people out there, but now we're comparing ourselves to people in our own cohort. People we went to school with, people we actually know. And so when we don't measure up to those people, we feel worse than when we don't measure up to a celebrity, right? Because we feel like we should have those things by now, or we should have these things because somebody else does.
Yeah, that's a dangerous game to play. Because it's like you're a hamster on a wheel, right?
It'll never end.
It'll never end. And then the next thing you know, you'll blink and then you're 45, 50, 60 years old. It's like, what the hell did I just do? I don't know. That's just I don't know. I sound like old man arms here, but that's just my kind of 2 cents on it. Right. I mean, Pat, you're kind of maybe agreeing here, or
it isn't, it doesn't even take that long. And you, even these kids where we say they look back 6 weeks, 6 days, 6 months from now, and they go, well, I don't look like that anymore. They forget that they spent that 45 minutes and sent it to 12 of their friends and did 19 different versions of the picture. They just go, oh, I don't look like that today. Well, no, because you just didn't spend half of your day making yourself look like that. And it's not even the cohorts and your peers and everything else. We're comparing to ourselves in unrealistic moments because we forget what we did to get in that moment. And that's where a lot of that self-care gets lost. Is we forget all the things we did to make ourselves look like not ourselves. So when we look, we're not ourselves, and it's this vicious little circle that you see that with kids all the time now, and adults the same way. How many times do you look back at a photo from 6 months ago and say, "Oh, that was a much better hair day"? Well, how many takes did that take? So we don't think that way.
Then you miss out on the moment, though. Like I mean, it's like you could be surrounded by family, and it's like how many people are just like you'd be talking there, and a bunch of people, and then everybody gets on their phone, and then we got to take a picture of this moment. Like I would say, like how many, like who's looking at all these photos? Like I mean, I said this too. Like when people were videotaping, when we were able to do them, like parades and stuff. It's like experience the moment, maybe take a couple of shots, and then you're good to go. But like who's like I don't know anybody who's going through like the footage, like like I'm just being honest, right? And that's just my 2 cents. But
and a couple years ago, we did one of my favorite experiments of all time, and we called it "Be Your Selfie." And we got those little Instamatic Polaroid cameras that were trending a couple years ago. And we took them to the mall, we took them to the university, and we challenged people to take a selfie. Not us take it. You took it, and so you couldn't see yourself. We couldn't line up. You held it out here. You took a picture of yourself in the selfie, and then they had to wait for the Polaroid to develop. And oh my God, the sheer panic on some people's faces. Some didn't want to take the picture. They wanted to go look at the bathroom first. They wanted to check there. They're asking for. We stopped them. Just take the picture. And then they sit there and they would do this, and waiting for that Polaroid to change, and there'd be a panic, and then it'd come out and they would look good, and it'd be like, oh my God, that was a great picture. Can I keep this picture? And they'd get so excited about it because they forgot what they look like in the moment. They forgot to appreciate themselves in the moment. And it was such a wonderful social experiment to watch. And we put a lot of those on our Facebook and our Instagram when we did it, and people were coming back and sharing the pictures of themselves in the moment, going out there, because it was such a unique experience that it was almost alarming that how much people have forgotten to appreciate those little things, and not being able to use the app and not being able to edit, and that, what do I really look like today? And I would say 99% of the people were shocked and pleasantly surprised, and really appreciated that experience, because they walked away, and it was fun to watch them 15 minutes later. We used to set up in the mall down by Chapters, still walking down the hallway, looking at the little picture and showing everybody and talking about it.
Getting right into it. Yeah.
So,
That's awesome.
I think with today's society and technology and the easy fixes, we've forgotten some of that.
To live in the moment, really.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we just have to do that. Take your first shot. Use that first screenshot you do. Use that first picture. Don't take 10 pictures. What you get, you get. That those are when we look back nostalgically at those of us who can remember photos from 20 years ago, 30 years ago. We remember those, but think about how vivid those memories are. Canada's Wonderland, or going to Cedar Point, or Boblo, because it was that moment. We didn't spend 45 minutes trying to get that moment. You remember the smells, the sounds, everything that was happening around you, because you knew that was that one shot. And I think we forget some of that and forget to appreciate some of that with today's technology.
Surely.
One thing that folks should be able to sort of respect and maybe the public doesn't get to see this from their standpoint, but when you look at how healthcare providers like yourselves and access to those service folks like yourselves work in the realm of a global pandemic, you're able to break down the silos that happen in sometimes in any kind of large operating beast, so to speak. Sometimes people work in silos. I think the pandemic has certainly had an opportunity for organizations like yourself to break down those silos and work with other organizations congruently to make sure that you're, again, filling in the gaps and doing what you need to do for the betterment of the people who need the help. And that's why I think BANA is so crucial to the overall structure of things, but also giving back some of that information and that leadership. Certainly, Lucy, from your standpoint, I know there's a conference with the good folks over at WeSpark Health that's going to be coming up. And this was really interesting when I was doing a bit of research on it. It is called the Caring for the Caregiver Conference. And I'm assuming this has something to do with the folks who are offering the care and making sure that they're in a good place to continue offering that care for the people who need the care. Am I off base on that?
Yeah, I mean, really, it came out of, I know Hotel Dieu Grace Healthcare has done a lot of research in terms of looking at caregivers. And so caregivers caring for adults, which is interesting because we don't hear that often. We generally hear caregivers for adolescents or young people or children, but really the ones caring for the adult loved ones living with mental illness and addiction. So that's really the focus. I feel very grateful to be able to be one of the panelists and speaking at this conference and talking about sort of our centralized intake and navigation, right? Because I think that's such an important piece for people accessing help. And sometimes it is those caregivers that need that support as well. And we tend to forget that in the adult population, because when you transition from youth, it's almost like everything's sort of cut off, right? Your parents are very much involved, the caregivers, whoever those people are, and then sort of the adults are sort of left to get in touch with the adult, treatment centers and do all those things on their own. But really, a lot of times with mental health and addictions, there is a number of caregivers that are caring for these people. We know that with eating disorders, there are some caregivers in our Ontario that we've met, and there's groups of them that care for their loved ones daily. And to have that support coming out of, and how do they navigate that system? How do they get those questions answered? And how do they access services and help their loved ones access that service? So very exciting. I think it's very overdue that caregivers are actually highlighted, because especially for the adult population, because we see that so much more for the adolescent and child sector.
It's going to be exciting see all the different groups involved in this, and I know the folks over at WeSpark Health continue to do a good job to sort of bring everybody in and have that sort of lens from everybody's different perspectives too. So that'll be interesting to see the results of the conference, and obviously hear yourself speak and the other folks who are speaking at it too. So a few minutes left here to go on the show before we wrap things up for this evening. What are some of the key takeaways you want folks to realize about BANA, about what you guys do, what the team does on a daily basis, and how Windsor can support you to make sure that you guys continue doing the amazing work that you're doing? So Lucy, I'll start with you.
Sure. I mean, certainly what I would like the takeaway to be is that if people are in need of help, seek the help, get help. Even if you're unsure, we get people that call and say, I'm too old, I'm too fat, I'm too this. And these are just things that I'm framing right directly from clients that have called us. Call, look on our website, get that information. Be kind to yourself. Remember that always, that we provide a number of services. Check out our website at www.bana.ca. And, we're here for you, and we will be getting, advocating for more services, more resources to be able to serve our community better. In terms of our community, we're always looking for donations. So there's opportunities to donate on our website as well. And so we would love to encourage people to do that. I appreciate, all the support from the community and the partners and everybody that's been involved with us. And we continue to partner and to serve our community the best that we can.
Pat, what about you from a communications lens? Engaging folks. I know you've got a lot on the go, but it's different times in COVID to try to connect with folks, right?
Yeah, it is, but I think that's the whole point is the open communications. A couple years ago we had our 35th anniversary gala, and we had a Roaring 20s theme, and we really didn't tell anybody why, and we waited till partway through the evening there, and it was a lovely. Everybody's dressed up, we all look like we were in a purple gang. And halfway through the evening, Lucy got up and we explained to people, we said, we've been asked for months while we were planning this event, why did we do a Roaring 20s theme for your 35th anniversary? And we said, well, back then, events like that was called Speak Easy. Now you're all members of BANA, and we want you to go ahead and speak easy about mental health. Speak easy about eating disorders. Feel comfortable about it. Feel comfortable asking questions, sharing your stories, getting the message out there. And that's really the key, is that people have to be comfortable about mental health. It's the only way we're going to get past it. So much of the isolation, the withdrawal, the keeping it in is what makes it so much worse. And there's never been a better time, because there is nobody, I don't care who you are, over the last 18 months that has not had some kind of mental health issue affect them. It's been, you can't go through something like we have gone through without being affected in some way. So you're now relatable. Everybody who thought it was just me, or maybe it's just me, it's not. Somebody out there is feeling what you're feeling, and chances are a lot of people are feeling what you're feeling. Speak out, speak easy, talk to somebody, call us. There's so many services here in Windsor-Essex waiting to help. What are you waiting for?
Well, I want to spend a couple minutes here just to say it's just so great to reconnect with the both of you, at least virtually. You guys have always been so kind to me and my family over the years, and I think you guys are doing incredible work. And I think Windsor is better community because you guys are doing what you do, and the entire team at BANA is doing what they do. So thank you for spending some time with me tonight on the show.
We appreciate you always having a channel of communication for us too. This has been, we say years, but we're getting close to decades now.
Don't make it sound old.
Yeah.
But no, it's also a testament to your commitment to this community and how valuable it's been. Because I can't think of a time where we haven't been able to call on arms to get the message out. And that's a wonderful thing to be able to have.
I appreciate that. To the both of you, thank you. And then my good partner, Eric, over at Eyes on Windsor, somebody that we've teamed up with here on the show. Great guy, says great show, great info tonight. Thanks, Arms, Lucy, and Patrick. So Eric, thank you for promoting and, of course, being a partner with us here on the project. So I will connect with you guys in the new year. Hopefully we can have you back on in February, and we can kind of shoot the breeze again and maybe hear from some of the clients as well who'd want to hop on and share their stories. So, hey, thank you so much for spending some time with us on the project. I'll let you guys get home. I know I appreciate you spending some prime time with us here this evening. So thank you, Lucy. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That is Pat Kelly and Lucy Rosu Sieza, who is the executive director from the Bulimia, Anorexia, and Nervosia Association. We appreciate their time on the program. They're doing some incredible work despite some challenging times with the pandemic. So get more information on their website, bana.ca. It's all there for you to absorb and to take a look at as well, including signing up for their newsletter and checking out their podcast too. A couple of things to get to just before we wrap up the show tonight. We've been talking about these. These are some fantastic mugs that we've been asking you to partake in. And this is me with some of the folks who watch and listen to the show. with our highly collectible mugs that are available for you to purchase. And they are an amazing way to support this program and two great charities here in Windsor-Essex, the Windsor-Essex County Humane Society and the Ronald McDonald House here locally at Windsor Regional Hospital. So if you'd like to get these mugs, they're crafted by Divinal Designs. They're $20 a piece, microwavable and dishwasher safe and highly stylish. You can message me or you can message Debbie at Divinal Designs. Find them on Facebook today, and we will get those mugs to you. So have a fantastic rest of the week. Hopefully things dry out over the next 24 hours as we head into the weekend. And don't forget, we're back live on Tuesday night with my good friend, Stephanie Lianga. She is going to be joining us on the program from Women's Skills, Enterprise Skills Training here in Windsor-Essex. Always a great conversation. We're going to talk a little bit about what they've been doing during the pandemic and more. Thanks for watching, folks. Take care, and we will see you next week on The Project.